Okay, so if anyone's struggling to remember, here's what Trump thought of H-1B visas before Elon Musk.
Well, first of all, I think, and I know the H-1B very well, and it's something that I frankly use, and I shouldn't be allowed to use. We shouldn't have it. Very, very bad for workers. And second of all, I think it's very important to say, well, I'm a businessman, and I have to do what I have to do, and it's sitting there waiting for you, but it's very bad. It's very bad for business in terms of, it's very bad for our workers, and it's unfair for our workers, and we should end it.
And here's Trump after the bromance.
And what I will do is you graduate from a college, I think you should get automatically as part of your diploma a green card. They go back to India, they go back to China, they do the same basic company in those places, and they become multi-billionaires employing thousands and thousands of people, and it could have been done here.
Nothing like $250 million to get you to change your tune while enraging your base to appease the oligarchs. But Trump's anti-establishment, remember?
Well, let me say a few words and try to explain it. Bottom line, the wealthiest person in the world who spent at least $277 million to elect Donald Trump in a Republican Congress has now claimed complete ownership of that party.
We're still a few weeks away from Trump 2.0, and there seems to be trouble in paradise. President-elect Donald Trump finally spoke out on the Civil War, driving a wedge between growing factions in the MAGA movement. And to absolutely no surprise, he threw his weight behind BFF Elon Musk, going against even his most devout cult followers in the process, like Steve Bannon.
In his clash with the far right over immigration, Elon Musk is now going after the hardliners, the very heart of the MAGA base, labeling them just a few hours ago as, quote, contemptible fools who must be removed from the Republican Party root and stem. Musk now finds himself pitted against the likes of Steve Bannon, however, Trump's former White House aide, who came out against Musk's push for H-1B visas, which allow highly skilled foreign workers into the U.S. and has long been the lifeblood of Silicon Valley.
H-1B visas, that's not what it's about. It's about taking American jobs and bringing over essentially what become indentured servants at lower wages. This thing's a scam by the oligarchs in Silicon Valley to basically take jobs from American citizens, give them to what become indentured servants from foreign countries, and then pay them less. Simple. To let them into through the golden door.
If there's some standard, if there's some terms of service that someone violated, spell it out. What was it? What did Laura Loomer violate? What did Gavin Wax violate? What did Owen Schroyer violate? Explain it to us, show us the evidence, and let's see the receipts. Because right now, it looks that all that got violated was that they had a disagreement with the most powerful user on the platform. And optics on that aren't exactly free speech.
Days into the infighting, Trump finally declared that, quote, I have always been in favor of visas, to which anyone with access to the internet pointed out, no, you weren't, mate.
Recently, the CEO of the Tennessee Valley Authority, Jeffrey Lyash, made a disastrous and heartless decision. The TVA announced that it would lay off over 200 American workers and replace them with cheaper foreign workers brought in from overseas. The Tennessee Valley Authority leadership then ordered the American workers to train their foreign replacements, rubbing salt in their very open wounds. So we're going to bring in workers. They're going to be foreign workers, and people from Tennessee and some other states right around it are going to train them what to do and how to do it. It doesn't work that way. As we speak, we're finalizing H-1B regulations so that no American worker is replaced ever again. H-1Bs should be used for top, highly paid talent to create American jobs, not as inexpensive labor program to destroy American jobs.
Well, first of all, I think, and I know the H-1B very well, and it's something that I frankly use, and I shouldn't be allowed to use. We shouldn't have it. Very, very bad for workers.
But not only that, dozens of blue-check conservatives rushed to criticize the incoming White House chief over his ever-changing view on the matter and accused him of betraying those most faithful to the MAGA movement. I'm going as far to ask, is MAGA dead on arrival? Now, if anyone is shocked that Trump speaks out of both sides of his mouth, I have a $60 God Bless America Bible from China with your name on it for $70.
Is it clear to you who Senator Schumer should be calling and negotiating with at this point? Is it Speaker Mike Johnson? Is it Donald Trump? Is it Elon Musk?
Let me say this one more time. There is no one for Leader Schumer to negotiate with. The Republicans can't get their own act together. And until they can, there's nothing for us to do. We have a deal. There's a deal sitting on the table. You know what? The Republicans right now could go back over there and vote, send the deal that had been negotiated, which would pass because it would have bipartisan support, send it over to the Senate. I predict it would pass the Senate and we would be done. Crisis averted. But the Republicans would rather have a crisis, would rather blow this up because they're all doing whatever the great and powerful Mr. Musk wants them to do.
Do you think there's going to be a government shutdown?
Ask Elon Musk.
Of course he's siding with the mega rich donors. I mean, he literally told you that he intended on doing this before getting in office. Remember when he said to his rich mates he's going to make them richer?
Because you're all people that have a lot of money. I know 20 of you and you're rich as hell. We're going to give you tax cuts. We're going to pay off our debt. We're going to do all of the things that we have.
Must come as a shock, I know. I can't believe our populist leader who tweeted his policy positions from the penthouse golden toilet is siding with fellow oligarchs. I mean, after all, he promised us unabashed racism across the board with immigration.
Donald Trump is going to once again cut taxes, largely and disproportionately for wealthy people and corporations. That has actually historically been the main contributor, not Donald Trump by himself, but tax cuts disproportionately for rich people and corporations have been the main contributor to the increase in our fiscal risks over the last 25 years. People like to talk about the spending, but in fact, our spending has actually come in lower than expected from 20 years ago. We know that older people have started to retire, and that does push up costs. But the really big problem that we've had in the budget for the last 25 years is we keep cutting taxes over and over again, mostly for people at the top in corporations. And when you're in a big hole, you probably should stop digging. But unfortunately, I agree with Michael. What I think is going to happen is that Donald Trump and Republicans in Congress are going to cut taxes mostly for rich people and corporations. And we're going to end up with a larger deficit and more fiscal risks than we had when we started.
Strain, what do you think? You agree with that? And would you tell your Republican colleagues not to do it then?
I wouldn't characterize it that way. We have good evidence from the 2017 tax cuts, from President Trump's first tax cuts, that the business tax cuts increased investment, increased the wages of workers, increased the earnings of the working class. So I disagree with the characterization.
Well, hold on, Michael. That's not true. We have good evidence that there was zero wage effect for the bottom 90% of workers. We have from actual data from the last 8 years, literally zero wage increase for the bottom 90% of workers. You're right that executives and the top 10% of workers got a big increase in their wages. And of course, they got more take-home profits. They got to put money into buybacks, share buybacks, but literally zero wage increase for the bottom 90%.
Then what about
And this is just a taste of what's to come. As is usually the case when it comes to Donald Trump and his supporters, he chooses his own self-interest over their wishes every single time.
Attack the Capitol on January 6th. Are you still vowing to follow through with that promise?
We're looking at it right now, most likely, yeah.
In a word, they think it's a terrible idea. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Pardoning for the January 6th protesters. Oppose it. 64%. About 2/3 of Americans oppose it. Just 30% favor it. And more than that, this Ipsos poll asked, should he prioritize it to be like the first thing he does when he gets into office? Just 1% say it should be Trump's top priority. So in a word, it's a terrible, terrible idea. I guess that's two words, and then idea is a third word in there for Trump to pardon the January 6th protesters. Even among Republicans, it's only a slight majority. Of course, usually Trump gets, 80, 90% among Republicans. In this case, he's getting less than 60% on the idea of pardoning the January 6th protesters. So no, voters really dislike it. How about this? Americans strongly dislike the idea of these pardons for the January 6th protesters.
Yeah, when you see numbers like this, it's not just on party lines here. There's sort of bipartisan condemnation of the idea. Why?
Why? Well, what's a word to describe the January 6th protesters? Patriotism. Patriotism comes in at just 33%. I think a lot of those who want those folks to be pardoned believe that they were patriotic in their actions on January 6th, 2021. But voters don't see it that way. How about insurrection, which is a word a lot who don't like the January 6th protesters say? Insurrection, 53%. The majority say that the actions on January 6th was, in fact, an insurrection. So the idea that there's opposition to pardoning them makes a whole heck of a lot of sense when the fact is most folks opposed the actions of the January 6th protesters, and most of them thought that they were taking part in an insurrection, which, John, is a very, very strong word. And yet the majority of Americans here, 53%, say that is a word to describe the January 6th.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.